Virtual Bike Club, episode number 9.
Yeah, in our episode today, we're going to teach you all about shifting, when to use it, and why.
Hi folks, so we're going to talk about shifting now. Before we start talking about when to do shifting and what shifting is, let's talk about the parts of a drivetrain so that we can better understand what we're doing. First, I want to show you the shifters. Most bikes have 2 shifters. This one does. So we have our shifter on the right and then we have our shifter on the left. The shifter on the left controls the front derailleur, which I'll show you in a second, and the shifter on the right controls the rear derailleur. So now if you want to move down to the drivetrain with me, this thing right here is our bike drivetrain. On the front we have our chain rings, and this is our front derailleur. If we move all the way back and follow our chain, you'll see the rear cassette, and then you'll see your rear derailleur. All right, so now let's see what happens mechanically when we're actually shifting. So first I'm gonna show you down here the chain. When I shift, this chain will move between these cogs on my rear cassette. We're just gonna focus on the rear derailleur today, and we'll come back to the front derailleur in a different video. So as I shift up here, which you can't see, but if you see the derailleur moving as I shift, you'll notice that that little elbow is bending. Now I'm gonna take the pedal and I'm gonna rotate it. And if you watch your chain, it's climbed up these teeth and is now on a different cog on your cassette. That is what's happening when you're shifting. We're going to talk about different shifting and gear ratios. So most bikes have shifters with numerical values on them. This is helpful because it helps you know where you are on your rear cog. This bike today does have numerical values. You can see that right now I'm on the 4th gear. That means I'm somewhere in the middle of my chain rings because there are 7 gears on this shifter. If I shift into a smaller number gear, that means that it's going to be easier for me to ride. If I shift into a higher number gear, 7 on this one, that means it's going to be harder for me to ride. Now what's happening when I'm actually pushing these buttons? What's happening to my chain and my drivetrain? If you come down here, you'll see that right now I'm currently in gear 4. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4th cog on this cassette. So when I shift down into number 7, my chain should fall back down to the lowest gear here. All right, I've shifted and now you'll see my chain has fallen down there. This is the hardest gear on this bike on this cassette. If I shift all the way up to my number 1, you'll see that it's climbing. And there we are almost. And there we go, we've made it to our highest gear, and this is our easiest gear. So now we want to talk about when to use the high gear and when to use the low gear.
Hey everyone, so just like Madeline said, now we're going to tell you when you want to shift. So basically anytime you come to a hill, you're going to want to shift. That way it's easier to ride. So if you're going up a hill, you're going to shift into an easier or lower gear. If you're going down a hill, you want to shift into a harder or higher gear. Now, when you're actually going to be doing the shifting, you should be doing that before you start climbing or descending the hill. So once you see that incline or decline coming up in the distance, you want to start shifting. If you try to shift once you're actually on the hill, it's going to be more difficult, and also your chain could fall off. So make sure that you are shifting before you start actually doing that hill. So now Natty is going to demonstrate for us how she is shifting when she's going up and down a hill. So Natty is going to shift into a harder gear and she's going to ride down this hill. Whee! See? Nice and controlled. Now Madeline is going to demonstrate on the uphill how she is shifting to a lower, easier gear. thing that we'll mention is why we shift. So basically, we shift so that we are able to ride comfortably on different terrains. So think like hilly versus flat, in a way that a single gear doesn't let us do. So basically, it lets us ride up hills easier and keeps us safer when we're riding a downhill. The last thing we'll mention is how to practice. So basically, when you are just starting to practice shifting, you want to find a quiet street or parking lot that you can practice shifting up and down in, just to see how that changes your bike and the feel of it, how it makes pedaling easier or harder. Once you're comfortable with that, you can find a nice hill at a park or something like that, nothing too steep to start out with, and you can practice shifting up for your downhills and down for your uphills. And then if you feel like a pro and you really want to test your knowledge, we have a quick little quiz. It's super short and sweet, and we are linking it in the description below. Take that quiz and we will reveal the answers in our next video.